You're listening to Coffee and Sports from Wire to Wire Sports Network on the National Streaming Sports Roku channel.
Good morning and welcome. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show powered by Wire to Wire Network. Thank you so much for making us part of your morning routine. I am Chris, and of course, that over there, that is Mo. Mo, happy Tuesday for you, sir.
Happy Tuesday to you, partner, and everybody out there that's joining us.
Mo, we did a great job picking Monday Night Football. We both took the Miami Dolphins to pick up a victory, and that they did. A couple of takeaways from the game last night, Mo. I think that we pretty much hit our analysis spot on. We talked about some of the inefficiencies of the secondary of the Rams, and on both of the Dolphins' touchdown drives, we saw those inefficiencies in the secondary. We talked about how Matthew Stafford is turnover prone, and he has now turned the ball over 6 straight games in a row. The Dolphins actually forced a couple of turnovers last night while also turning the ball over a couple of times themselves. We looked at the Miami's last 2 games where they scored 27 points in both, and against a good Cardinals team and a good Buffalo Bills team, and said the offense isn't really the issue right now for Miami. They're scoring 27 points a game. It's the defense that in both of those games has given away 10-point leads at various points throughout the game and in the last seconds of those games to allow the other team to pick up a victory. And it was the defense that stepped up last night, keeping the Rams out of the end zone, allowing long third down situations, forcing the Rams into long third down situations, keeping Matthew Stafford and company uncomfortable for the majority of the night, and ultimately leading to a 23-15 victory that keeps the playoff hopes alive. So, Mo, I said yesterday here on the show that obviously it's 8. 8's the number, guys. I keep saying this. Once you lose 8 games, the playoffs are over. I don't care which conference you were in. Miami's only at 6, and they are now a game and a half out of the final wild card spot. Now, all of this comes crashing down, Mo, if they lose a game to the Raiders, per se. But you beat the Rams, and you start to look at the Dolphins' schedule, Mo, and as long as you are not an anti-Dolphin person, anyone that is not biased looks at this schedule and says, that could work out favorably for them. So over the next 2 weeks, the Dolphins are going to play host to the Raiders and the Patriots, who basically have the same record as they do. So those are winnable games. And then they have the big matchup on Thanksgiving on the road in Green Bay. If they take care of business at home against the Raiders and against the Patriots, they are 5-6 heading into the Green Bay Thanksgiving Day matchup. Now, are they going to be a favorite in that game? Probably not. Even if they beat up on the Raiders and the Patriots, they still may not be a favorite in that game. But again, Mo, they're not making the playoffs this year unless they beat a couple of good teams. And they're going to have to do that. And it may not have to be the Packers, but they're going to have to win a couple of good games against good teams if they are going to make the playoffs and pull this off. And the first one on the schedule is the Green Bay game. After the Green Bay game, they go back home for the Jets. So 3 of their next 4 games are at home against the Raiders, the Patriots, and the Jets. Not saying they're going to win them all, Mo, but those are 3 very winnable football games if you're the Miami Dolphins. Their last 2 games of the season, they're both on the road, but they're against the Browns and the Jets. 2 very winnable football games. So, Mo, for me, it comes down to this. They have 3 games. They are on the road Thanksgiving night in Green Bay. They are on the road December 15th in Houston, which is an indoor game, which is very important in this situation. And they are home December 22nd against the San Francisco 49ers, which is also important because they're not traveling across the country. They have to win 2 of those 3 games because, again, the magic number is don't have 8 losses. They currently have 6. So the path to the playoffs, in my opinion, for Miami is going to be 10 wins. And the way they get there is they take care of business against the Raiders, the Patriots, the Jets again, and the Cleveland Browns. And then they have to find a way to win 2 out of 3 games against good teams. In Green Bay, Thanksgiving night, in Houston, December 15th, or in Miami, December 22nd, they got to get 2 of the 3. Now, I'm not going to sit here today and tell you it's going to happen, Mo, because there's a lot of football to play. And a lot of things have to go Miami's way because at the end of the day, they are still waking up this morning, Mo, as a 3-6 football team. And most 3-6 football teams have flaws. Most 3-6 football teams have things they need to work out. That's why they're 3-6. And Miami is no different. But I'm not sitting here this morning, Mo, all doom and gloom because the path is there. And in my opinion, this team doesn't deserve to make the playoffs if you're dropping games to the Jets or the Raiders or the Patriots. And if you can't beat a couple of good teams this season, then it wasn't meant to be. You weren't good enough. So for me, Mo, it's all right there. It's all laid out in front of them, and we'll see what happens.
And I like to add that most 3-6 teams, at least in this current season, they haven't been without their franchise quarterback for most of that season. Let's not forget Tua has not played because of the injury. I enjoyed the game last night. I was impressed with Tua because it felt like he literally took what the defense gave him, threw the ball. I think he threw it to about 7 or 8 different receivers. He was mixing things up. He was recognizing the coverages, taking what was underneath. There was a big completion late in the game to O Jr. I think it was like an 11-yard. I think he involved everybody that he could. I was most impressed though with, you pointed out, the defense. They had Matthew Stafford off balance, and if you're going to beat the Rams, you've got to get the Stafford. And I think the Dolphins had 4 sacks, multiple pressures. I like the way the defense looked, and even when they lost a couple of cornerbacks to some injuries, they made plays when they needed to. So if the defense, to me, is going to play at this level, the offense is going to be there. I think the Dolphins' offense is going to be there. They're still not even operating with all their best weapons. When they're fully loaded, to me, still one of the best offenses in football. If the defense is going to be bend, not break, or be able to make plays in the red zone, Look, I'm with you. I can see the path to getting to the playoffs, and I'm not saying they're going to get there, but I think they're going to give themselves a legit shot. I do think they will beat the teams they're supposed to beat. The challenge you pointed out is going to be beating the teams that they're not favored against. The Packers game start on Thanksgiving. That's a tough game, right? Not only is Green Bay a good team, it's in Green Bay, it's in climate weather probably. But it'll be interesting because like Matthew Stafford, as good well as Jordan Love plays, he does put the football in harm's way. So I think there'll be opportunities.
And you look at the Dolphins, Mo, and Calais Campbell. They said his name a bunch of times last night. This dude is 38 years old. Turning back father time this season, all over the place, just impacting the game everywhere. Also, Miami got Zach Sieler back last night. Sieler's missed the last couple of games. He had a couple of impact games early in the first quarter last night in his return to the lineup. And Mo, you mentioned, and actually mentioned during the broadcast last night. Last night was the first time that they really got a lot of different sets involving Odell Beckham Jr. on the field. And a lot of that is a couple of things. One, let's not forget, Odell missed the first 5 or 6 games of the season with his own injury. And then he comes back, Tua's not here. So, you look at him and Tua, and outside of the preseason work they did when Odell wasn't even cleared to play, they didn't really start working together until 2 weeks ago when Tua came back against the Cardinals. So this is only their third game together this season. And you saw him used a lot more. You saw him in many more sets. And I think, again, that's something we're going to see more of over the next few weeks. And no, Odell Beckham Jr. is not going to be a monster wide receiver in this offense. But Mo, I don't think he was ever supposed to be. I think he's supposed to be what you saw last night. He is a clutch, third down, short yardage, over the middle, gotta have it, 7 or 8 yards to either get a first down or to take a 2nd and 18 and turn it into a 3rd and manageable. That's what he is. Tyreek and Waddle are your down the field guys. The tight end, Jonnu Smith, although he again had a silly drop last night. Even Waddle had a silly drop last night. But that's not Beckham's role in this offense. And I think last night you saw what his role was. He was in there in those kind of gotta have it moments, need a handful of yards. He got that big first down late in the fourth quarter, celebrated that big fourth down like it was a big third down, like it was a big first down. And that's the kind of stuff you want to see from Odell Beckham. And sure, might there be a couple of spots down the next stretch of these next 6 or 7 games where he might have a big play or two as far as yardage and chunk yardage, and maybe, because the more he's on the field, the bigger opportunity he's going to have, especially if the focus is on Tyreek and Waddle. And you saw a couple of plays last night where they focused so much on Tyreek that they just forgot to cover Jalen Waddle on a few of those plays. And that's why Jalen Waddle was so wide open in a couple of those plays, because they just focused so hard on Tyreek Hill. Well, what happens when you start focusing so hard on Tyreek and Waddle? Well, if that third guy on the field is Odell Beckham Jr., and I think that's what the Dolphins brought him in for. The running game, despite the fact that I don't think Mostert had a single carry last night, it was A-Chain and the rookie who did most of the work. And by the way, the Rams' run defense, not the issue, Mo. That is not their kryptonite. Their run defense was stout for the majority of the evening, whether it be the runs the Dolphins tried to stretch out and go side to side. A lot of the stuff on the inside, the Rams defense swallowed up whole. Their number 1 draft pick, and the kid's name escapes me, Verge or Vergis or something along those lines, he was flying all over the place last night. And the broadcast team did a terrific job of highlighting what he was doing on the defensive side. But if you look at the Rams' performance overall, the Dolphins kind of exposed the two things they struggle with. The first is offensive line protection. The O-line never got into a rhythm last night. And because the O-line never got into a rhythm, their run game never was truly a factor. They had a couple of decent chunk runs, but for the most part, the running game was held in check. And because of the fact that their secondary had some issues last night and they got down 10-0 early and were chasing the scoreboard the entire night, they never really turned to the run because of the fact that they were down and they were trying to play catch up. And that fed into the O-line issues. That fed into the Dolphins being able to pressure them. And then once they did get into the red zone, Mo, they weren't able to convert it into touchdowns. So if you ask me, what three biggest things for the Rams: O-line, secondary, and converting red zone opportunities into touchdowns and not field goals, that was the game for them last night. And for a lot of teams, if you struggle in those three areas, you are going to struggle to win football games. Now, does that mean the Rams season is over? No, not by any stretch, especially not in their division. But they got to get better offensive line play. They got to get better secondary play. And you need to be more efficient in the red zone in the NFL if you are going to win football games.
No, I agree. Look, I think the Rams are still a dangerous football team, especially within that particular division. Even though right now the Cardinals look to be the class of that division. But look, if you give Matthew Stafford any kind of amount of time, he will carve your defense up. He is one of the better throwers of the football in the NFL today, period. But when you watch the Rams play, he's under duress most games, and he takes a lot of big shots. I thought they would be a more balanced offense because they do have a talented running back, but their offensive line just isn't really very good in the run game or the pass game, and so they're an imbalanced offense. They don't lack for weapons, and they were able to move the ball, but like you pointed out, they're not good in the red zone. And if you're not good in the red zone, and if you're not good at defending the pass, more times than not, you're not going to be a very good football team. At least you're not going to make the playoffs. And so while it was a tough loss for them, if you've got Matthew Stafford and the weapons that they have, I still think they're the most dangerous team in that division.
Well, let's talk about America's team. Let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys. So, did you see Micah's comments after the game on Sunday?
I did.
Yeah. So, Micah Parsons, who's dealing with some injury stuff, who hasn't quite had the season that many thought he was going to have, and a lot of that is because of the injuries he's been dealing with. And a lot of that is kind of because of the state of that defense overall. It's kind of hard as a pass rusher to get what you want to get numbers-wise and stats-wise when your team is constantly in double-digit holes and you're playing a lot of prevent defense and a lot of we just need to hold them. You know what I mean, Mo? You're not really pinning your ears back a lot and just going after guys when you're playing on your heels the entire time. He was frustrated. He was frustrated after the loss, but he went after Coach. He went after Coach and made some comments about the team's preparation and the team's game planning and really called out his head coach and kind of put him on the spot. And Mo, people were outraged that Micah Parsons would go after his head coach like that. I was watching some analysts across different platforms yesterday talking about respect and how dare you come out of your locker room and you say things like that about the people leading your football team. This would never have happened 15 or 20 years ago. And Mo, I look no further than this. Did you see what Jerry Jones said after the damn football game? If not, here's the quote. "We've won 3 games with Dak. So I'm just saying, We weren't playing well with Dak either. Why the hell am I going to expect Micah Parsons, who I think is an idiot anyway when it comes to some of his football takes? If you listen to his goddamn podcast, half the stuff that comes out of his mouth is Jerry Jones Jr.-esque as far as him having rose-colored Dallas Cowboy glasses on. So if that's what we're already talking about going into this conversation, if you're talking about someone that already has nonsensical, outlandish takes half the time on his podcast, why do I expect him to not do something like this when the owner of the football team doesn't even have the respect and decorum to not come after his own head coach at times or his own starting franchise $60 million quarterback at times with his own comments on his own monthly or weekly radio show that he does every single week? If the owner isn't going to set the example, Mo, why do I think that Micah, who has his own podcast, isn't going to do some of the same crap that the owner is doing? Of course he is. It's a circus. It is a circus over there with the Dallas Cowboys, and it starts from the top and it works its way down. If the owner is going to openly say things about the coaching and the head coach and the play calling and the offensive scheme, which, by the way, he's hit on all of those this season. And this is not the first time he has talked about Dak Prescott. Before he signed Dak Prescott in the 11th hour before the season began, you might remember, Mo, that he said something to the effect of, "We've seen what Dak Prescott is," which at the time led us to believe, damn, he's not going to re-sign Dak Prescott because he's already seen what Dak is, and apparently he ain't impressed with that story. That's wild. And of course, he signs him a week later because Jerry's Jerry. So no, Mo, I wasn't shocked when I saw what Micah said. Just like I wasn't shocked when CeeDee Lamb's talking to reporters about the sun being in his eyes. Just like I wasn't shocked when I saw the press conference yesterday with Coach Mike McCarthy, and the focus wasn't on what Mike McCarthy said, Mo. It was on the fact that they set up little sun protectors around the podium to keep the sun out of Mike's eyes while he was talking to reporters, and people were wondering why they couldn't do something for. Why are we still talking about the effing sun? Why? That's not the issue on this team. The sun is not what we should be talking about, guys. That was not the difference in the beatdown that took place against the Philadelphia Eagles, where you had almost as many turnovers as you had points on the board. Mo, the freaking Dallas Stars scored as many goals in the first period of their hockey game last night as the Dallas Cowboys scored points in 4 quarters of an NFL game on Sunday. I don't want to hear about the sun. I don't want to hear about curtains. I don't want to hear about what they block out for NBA games and concerts. I don't care. You're a bad football team with terrible leadership, with a head coach that has no control of a locker room. Why did Micah say that? Because he's not afraid of Mike McCarthy. He knows at the end of the day, Mike McCarthy ain't doing nothing to him. He ain't benching him. He ain't giving him a hard time. He ain't going to get the regime to not resign him. Mike McCarthy has nothing on Micah Parsons because Micah knows it's all Jerry. As long as Jerry wants me here, I'm going to be here. As long as Jerry thinks I'm worth the money, I'm going to be here. As long as Jerry thinks I should be playing, I'm going to play. That's the issue in Dallas right now, Mo. That's why people disrespect the head coach. Because not only is Jerry the GM, he's basically the head coach of that football team. And as long as Jerry wants you, who cares what I say about Mike?
Right.
Because if Mike crosses me, Who do you think Micah's going to go to? Jerry. Mo, it's a circus, man. It's a circus in Dallas right now.
It's bad there. There's a lack of leadership top to bottom. The owner needs to fire the GM. The problem is the GM is also
his son.
Well, his son and himself, right? To a degree, right. But obviously the owner's not going to fire the GM, but he needs to be fired. Look at the roster construction or lack thereof on both sides of the football. That is done by the owner and the GM. They put together this team. They drafted these players. Look, Micah Parsons, I get it. I think he is part of this new thing where, I don't know, almost every player now in every league has a podcast.
They all do. And it's not good for the league.
It's not good for any league. And I feel like they use it to vent their personal grievances in a clever way where they normally wouldn't be able to do that. And people hear it and go, well, he's just spitting. He's just telling the facts. He's telling the truth. Like, he is telling it as he sees it. It's not actually a fact. And yeah, look, the stuff he said about Mike McCarthy, like you said, nobody's going to hold him accountable. But I will say this, whatever you think of Mike McCarthy's tenure there in Dallas, Mike McCarthy actually has one of the better coaching records in terms of winning. He is a Super Bowl winning coach. And I'm sure his winning percentage is pretty high overall. And it's not like, with the exception of this current season, the Dallas Cowboys weren't a winning team. They haven't had a lot of playoff success, but that can be connected to a number of things. That's not squarely on the coach. I just think that Micah Parsons knows what you and I know, what most pundits know, that coming into this season, Mike McCarthy had to not only get into the playoffs, but he probably had to get to a conference championship to keep his job. And obviously they're far from that. They're not going to make the playoffs. He knows he's a lame duck coach, and he's treating him with that lack of respect. And there is no accountability in that locker room. There's no accountability in that organization. Jerry Jones brought back Ezekiel Elliott, who was well past his prime when they let him go the first time. And you brought him back to that running backs room like, I think Zeke can help. Like, really? This version of Zeke? Like, maybe in pass protection, maybe in short yardage, but he's not the guy that you give the ball to 20 times a game, even more so behind one of the worst offensive lines in football. Like, I look at the Dallas Cowboys, like I said, when I said they weren't going to make the playoffs, I wasn't guessing. I saw what I saw. It's a bad football team. It's a poorly constructed football team, and that lies squarely at the feet of Jerry Jones and his son.
And Mo, this goes back well before the start of the season. This goes back well before the start of the off-season program. This goes back to the end of the regular season last year when, let's be fair, and I'm sorry, but Mike McCarthy should have been fired. Not because of what happened in the playoffs, not because of anything that Mike McCarthy really did as head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, but Mike McCarthy should have been fired for one reason and one reason only. Bill Belichick was available. That was the move. That was the move right there. Bill Belichick was available and wanted to coach. And you didn't even have him in to talk? You didn't even, and maybe there was a backdoor conversation, but I doubt it because we would have heard about it because it's the Dallas Cowboys. So Bill Belichick's available and it's not even a conversation. Why? Because Bill likes control and you don't want to give it up? Got it. That's a Jerry issue. Why? Because Bill's not a yes man? Oh, that's a Jerry issue. Got it. Why was there no offer to Derrick Henry? Oh, because our system isn't conducive to the style of running back that Derrick Henry is. Got it. So first, Bill Belichick was available. Clear coaching upgrade over what you have right now. Has success in the area that your team doesn't have success in, which is winning playoff games and championships. But because he's going to want control, or because he won't be a yes man, can't do it. Can't have that conversation. Got it. Well, why couldn't we bring in Derrick Henry? Oh, well, if you look at what we've been running the past couple of years as far as the way our run game is set up, he wouldn't have jived with our current. Got it. So instead of changing your current offense, which, by the way, had no running game last season and struggled in the running game the couple of seasons prior, instead of upgrading the running back room and upgrading your running game through making people have to learn different systems and making people have to change a little bit, that's the big key word here now, Mo. Didn't want to do it. So didn't want to change to bring in Bill Belichick. Didn't want to change to bring in Derrick Henry. Well, did we at least take care of our... No, we didn't take care of our guys. It took us freaking forever to sign CeeDee Lamb. It took us even more forever to sign Dak Prescott, literally costing the team tens of millions of dollars in the process because you waited so long to get these players signed. Look at what happened in the quarterback and the wide receiver markets while we waited to sign CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. Had you gotten these deals done at the end of the regular season or the end of the playoffs, you would have probably saved yourself $10 or $20 million. Well, Chris, 10 or 20. Well, what? You could have afforded Derrick Henry. You could have afforded another piece at the offensive line. You could have brought in something you don't currently have, and you would have avoided all of the training camp nonsense that was associated with CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott not having contracts. But again, they're not going to change the way they negotiate. That's not what Jerry does. Jerry don't sign you early. Jerry waits till you bend and break. And then if you don't bend and break, then Jerry has to bend and break. And then he spins it to make it look like he did what was best for the team. And you still bent to his will some way. Once again, the Dallas Cowboys don't want to change. So, Mo, we literally sat here through months and months and months of watching the Dallas Cowboys refusing to do things differently, refusing to get out of their own way, refusing to force ownership, general managers, coaching, and players to have to adapt to something new or different or to be uncomfortable for a few weeks. And here we are as a result. You lost out on a Hall of Fame head coach. You can't sit here and tell me Bill Belichick wouldn't have coached the Dallas Cowboys. You damn straight Bill Belichick would have coached the Dallas Cowboys, because that could have been a path to a Super Bowl in short order if Bill Belichick got what he needed to be successful in Dallas. He wasn't going to go there if he knew that he was going to be a puppet to Jerry Jones. He's not dumb. He wasn't going to put himself in that situation. But if he thought the team was going to give him what he needed, of course that would have been a viable option for him. That's why we keep hearing reports that he's biting at the chomp to get back into coaching next season, because he wants to coach. He doesn't want his legacy to be what was the way out of New England. That's not how he wants to end his career. He wants to win another championship outside the Patriots, and the Cowboys could have given him that. You let the Hall of Fame running back, look what he's doing in Baltimore. You don't think he couldn't find that kind of success in Dallas? Well, maybe not with that offensive line, but he would have been a huge upgrade over whatever they got now at the running back position.
For sure.
But Mo, they refused to change. And now here we are, just past the halfway point of the season, and we still refuse to change. We still are talking bad about our players. We're still criticizing our quarterback. We're still saying off-color things if we're Jerry Jones. And maybe Jerry doesn't realize this. He just signed Dak to an extension for $60 million a year. He ain't going nowhere. So maybe you should stop criticizing your franchise quarterback and start putting a team around him to help him be successful. Because the one thing that most people in NFL circles know, Mo, is that Dak needs things around him to go well for him to go well. And when things around him don't go well, man, he is a very, very average quarterback. So you're right. The Dallas Cowboys have only won 3 games with Dak as their quarterback this season, Jerry. Do you want to know why? Because you have no offensive line. Because you have no running game. Because you only have one real weapon on offense, and his name is CeeDee Lamb. And when he's double covered, Dak has to throw the football somewhere else, and those aren't good options that he's throwing to. Remember when you saw that guy, Amari Cooper? Wow, what a great 1-2 punch that was for Dak Prescott. It's wild, Mo. It's absolutely wild to just look at what Dallas has done the last 6 months and think that this is how the most recognizable brand in the NFL is being ran.
And maybe that's the end game, right? When you're Jerry Jones and company, despite the fact they're not going to make the playoffs, I think Dallas is probably still number 1 or number 2 when it comes to merchandise and things of that nature. Like, isn't that
sure.
you know what I mean? Like, they're not going to win, but no matter what, they're Teflon when it comes to merchandising. They're Teflon when they're on TV for some reason. They're not even a good football team.
Mo, the most popular Halloween costume.
So I don't is raking in the money.
The most popular Halloween costume this year was the Dallas Cowboy cheerleader because of their Netflix series. Like that.
This is where we're at.
That's where we're at. Like what?
We're at.
And Jerry mentioned it. Jerry, why do you care? Then you have. I get it. Like when you're having the investor calls, mention it. Like that is a feather in your cap when you're having those investment meetings and you're like, son of a gun, we got the number 1 Halloween costume. Look, that's crazy money right there. That's got nothing to do with football on the field, though.
It doesn't. And you pointed out they could have started this season out right by hiring Bill Belichick. I think you bring in a Bill Belichick, it not only refocuses the team on being on a mission to win a championship or title. The locker room is different. It's business-like. You know, a Bill Belichick locker room is business-like. All these side issues, there's none of that in a Bill Belichick locker room. Now, Micah Parsons very well would still have his podcast, but you best believe that he and Coach Belichick would have private conversations about what needs to be kept in house. I will say this: if Bill Belichick were the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, and let's say they were struggling the way they are now, and Micah Parsons went after Bill Belichick, exactly.
Oh, Nelly.
Exactly. He doesn't do this a lot, but Bill Belichick would have probably said something like, we don't need to hear from guys that haven't played all year. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like we need to focus on the guys that are actually on the field in the locker room. We don't really need to hear from podcasters. Like he would have went there with it because he's no nonsense. He's much needed. And look, maybe they will autocorrect this offseason and they'll go out and make the move. We know Mike McCarthy's not coming back, and
we hope. We think. Well, there's no guarantee, Mo.
Yeah, you're right. Look, I think he's not coming back. That's fair. I have to believe that Jerry Jones needs to bring in a coach who has some credibility, who has automatically has that kind of swag and respect from his players. It's needed right off the bat. The only question with him and Belichick is, can Jerry step back and let Bill run the team? No. You know what I mean? Like when Bill's in meetings and they're having their meetings and they're breaking down their different groups and Jerry saunters in there and starts asking questions. Well, why don't we? Bill Belichick's not going to stand for that. Like we don't have to go back that far. Just remember back in the day when Bill Parcells was the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. That didn't work out because Bill Parcells, he got sick of Jerry Jones trying to there's no way a strong-minded head coach can work with the owner that's trying to micromanage everything. It just doesn't work.
Mo, it's not going to work when Bill Belichick goes to Jerry day one and says, all right, we are not going to land our helicopter on the practice field anytime we're having a live practice this season. Right, Jerry? Like, when that's got to be a conversation that we're having, Mo, because that's the kind of nonsense that Jerry Jones does. Like, I think Jerry Jones looks at himself in the mirror and he sees 35-year-old billionaire playboy. Like, I think Jerry thinks he's Bruce Wayne. I really think he does. And he just does this crap sometimes where you're just like, why? That's not logical. Why are we landing the helicopter on the practice field in the middle of practice? Why? And we do that and no one's fazed by it because apparently we do that on a semi-regular. Oh, that's just Jerry. Right. Got it. That's okay. That's just Jerry. Got it. Mm-hmm. It's that scene from The Dark Knight where Bruce is hosting a party at Wayne Manor and he lands the helicopter outside the patio and walks in with 3 models on each arm. That's Jerry Jones.
That's Jerry Jones.
That's Jerry Jones.
Jerry loves being a celebrity. He does.
I wish he loved owning a football team and being a good general manager as much.
Well, you know what? I when everybody says Jerry wants to win one more Super Bowl, I think he does, but I think that it's not the end of the world for Jerry if they don't, because like I said, the Dallas Cowboys they're a cash cow, and he knows that. So at the end of the day, they're going to sell out. At the end of the day, their merchandise, they're going to be number one in merchandise. They're one of the biggest draws when they're on TV, good or bad. It's not like they're struggling money-wise. What they're struggling with is a lack of leadership, any kind of vision, and being able to take a step back, let a strong-minded, credible coach run the football team. It's a layup to hire Bill Belichick. I don't know if Jerry's willing to take the layup.
Well, and that's the issue. He wants to win, but he wants to win the way he wants to win, which is he's in power. He's making decisions. He's getting the credit for the decisions. Because you know what happens, Mo. He brings in Bill Belichick, and they go and win a Super Bowl in a year or two. That's Jerry gets none of that credit. That's not Jerry Jones did that. That's Jerry Jones hired Bill Belichick, and Bill Belichick brought Dallas a Super Bowl. But the way it's currently set up is, well, everything that happens in Dallas is Jerry's. He makes all the decisions. So if Dallas makes it to a Super Bowl, Jerry's a big part of that. His players, it's what he wants. He's decide who starts. It's all Jerry. Not if you bring in a Bill Belichick or someone of a Bill Belichick ilk. Once that happens, it's all the coach. And it's all the assistants and all the schemes and everything the coach brings into the building. It's a lot less of Jerry getting the credit. And I think it's pretty obvious because he doesn't make a move that takes him out of control or takes him out of the spotlight. He is the Dallas Cowboys. So I think he wants to win one badly, but not badly enough to remove himself from the equation to allow it to potentially happen. And that is repeatedly the biggest hurdle with the Dallas Cowboys.
That's the biggest issue, right? That he wants it to be because of him. But what I would say to Jerry Jones is if you bring in Bill Belichick and it leads to you guys ultimately getting back and winning a Super Bowl, yes, he will get the lion's share of credit. But you will get credit for being the owner smart enough to hire Bill Belichick. That's kind of the extent of the kind of credit the owner gets, right? You're
Right.
the guy that you know what I mean? You're the guy that controls the purse strings and all that. When we talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, we talk about Mahomes and Reed. We don't even mention their owner, which
No.
to me is how it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to talk about the owner. You know what a great owner does? He sets his team up for success and stays out of the spotlight, keeps his mouth shut. That's how that works. And Jerry doesn't get it.
We used to talk about the owner in Miami a lot. It was an issue, Mo. when
Yes,
we were
I've
talking
read.
about
I've read up.
when we were talking about Stephen Ross a lot in Miami, things weren't going well in Miami. Since the arrival of Mike McDaniel, aside from that one little hiccup with that Tom Brady business, we don't talk about Stephen Ross at all. There's no daily articles about Stephen Ross. We barely even see Stephen Ross. Every now and then you'll get a press box showing a Stephen Ross sitting next to Dan Marino. That's it. That's how it should be, Mo. When we're talking about the owner, the team's usually not doing pretty good. Like, ask the Carolina Panthers. They talk about your owner all the time. How you feeling about that? You're not. You don't want people talking about your owner. If the owner is being talked about a lot in the NFL or in most situations when it comes to sports, it's not a good thing. Speaking of not good things, the Chicago Bears have said yesterday that Caleb is going to remain the Bears QB1. Not really a surprise there. I think he should have. But Matt Eberflus teases other changes on the offense. Mo, I take that as he don't know what to do to fix it. He's not an offensive guy. He doesn't know what's wrong with the offense. Like, he knows what he wants the end result. He's not an idiot. He knows what he wants the end result to be. He knows what they're probably not doing well. But Mo, let's also be honest. If you're not changing the quarterback and you're not firing the offensive coordinator, what are you really doing? Like, there aren't many other fixums for an NFL offense in season if you're not going to make a quarterback change and you're not going to make an offensive coordinator change and you're not going to make a who's calling the plays change. I guess that's the third one you could throw in there. And none of those three things are changing. So really, what are we doing on offense that's going to be different aside from just saying things to Caleb like protect the football, get rid of it quicker, maybe calling more one-read plays so the ball comes out a little bit. I mean, aside from that stuff, what else can we really do if you're not going to make one of those three wholesale changes?
Yeah, honestly, I don't get that. I think he was just saying stuff just to say stuff because it's not like you can go out, well, you know what? Everybody that starts on the offensive line, they're going to get replaced. That's not gonna happen because those are actually your best linemen. Those are your best offensive linemen.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So look, I do think, and we all know this, a young quarterback's best friend is a good running game. They actually have a really good running back in DeAndre Swift. Their offensive line is capable in the run game. Run the football, and play more ball control. And like you said, give Caleb simple reads. You know what I mean? Drop back. You got one or two reads. It's not there. Get to the ground or throw it away. Like sometimes it's okay to water down the playbook. You're putting too much stuff in that young man's head, and because the offensive line is so porous, he's already getting bad habits. Like I pointed out yesterday on yesterday's show, you don't want your quarterback seeing the rush. Not in year one already. No. That usually happens to a guy that's been beaten down. He's in, and he has been beaten down, but in year one, look, all I'm saying, Chicago Bears fan, is what you don't want is you don't want David Carr. You don't want that. And he's taking a David Carr-like beating. You've got to run the football 3 yards in a cloud of dust, simplify the offense, and get through this season. If he's your franchise quarterback, if it's meant to be, you'll make the playoffs. If not, that's fine, but you have to set him up for success going forward into next year. If he's beaten down and his confidence is shattered, how does that bode well in the offseason and then going into next year's training camp? It doesn't, because what people are going to point out is, if you look by the names, he actually has all kind of weapons on the outside. Remember, they set him up with DJ Moore. Like, they have playmakers, but simplify the offense. I don't care if there's 6-yard passes. If he has to play more of a dump it down, do that. If my running backs have 60 catches, if my tight end has 75 catches, I'm okay with that. This is just year one. If he's your franchise quarterback, he's going to be around for 10 years, but you have to help him help you.
Well, let's jump to some NBA stuff. Bronny sent down to the G League, and then the G League coach comes out and says, well, we don't really know what we're going to do with Bronny yet. So he's not going to start, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. It's tough. It's tough. And, whenever you're talking about anything LeBron James related, you're going to just live in a world of overreactions. So there was the world of overreactions when he was sent down. We knew he was going to be sent down.
Right. There
was the world of overreactions when the head coach of the G League team was like, well, he's not going to start right away. What did you want him to say? Well, Bronny's going to be the star of the G League. Thank goodness he's here, our savior. No, he's a rookie. He's a rookie that probably shouldn't have been drafted as high as he was. All right, let's be fair. I'm not saying he can't play. I'm not saying he can't carve out a niche at some point. But do you think that every rookie that gets sent down to the G League just immediately starts in the G League? They're teams with coaches who have systems, who have things in place that you need to fit players into. Like that, it's not an unrealistic thing that someone gets sent down to the G League and they don't start right away. Like, there's a process there, Mo. But at the same time, there is the other side of it where you look at it and say, man, he knew he was going to get sent down to the G League, but his head coach wasn't even like PR nice about it. Like, there's you can say things and not say things, and you could have said things in that situation, that made it, at least that softened the blow a little bit for Bronny. He chose not to. It is what it is. But I think when anything that is LeBron or Bronny related, we are going to live in a world of overreaction. And at the end of the day, Mo, he just needs time. He needs time to develop. He needs time to work his craft. And we'll see. He's not a finished product. We saw him play. He did some nice things. He has some limitations. But you have to assume that when we see him again in the NBA, he is going to be a better version than what we saw the first handful of games that we saw him. And isn't that what you want from a rookie?
Yeah, and look, I'm of the opinion that I look at where he was drafted. He's a project. He's a project. And if his dad wasn't who he was, we wouldn't even be giving a project this much attention. We just acknowledge he's a project, and we wouldn't expect the world from him game by game. And I think you hit it on the head. He has to, in this league, carve out his niche. And I think it's going to be he's going to be a really good on the ball defender. And I think that's where he's not going to be a guy scoring 20 plus points a game, but if he can really hone his skills defensively and make his stand there, then he just needs to master hitting, catch and shoot threes, right? He can be a very good 3-and-D guy and an on-the-ball defender, which is very valuable in this NBA. But all these people that rise and fall off of his every move, I'm like, when in the history of basketball have we given the 57th pick in the draft this much attention? We don't. When we see the guy get drafted 57th, we go, well, the guy's he's got his work cut out for him. He's going to be in the G League. He's going to have to grind. And then we let it go. We don't even pay attention to him again until he makes his way onto the main roster. I think Bronny faces criticism that nobody should have to face when you're drafted where he's drafted at. At the same time, though, do I think he will find his way and find a niche? I do. I actually think he's a capable basketball player. He's not going to be what his father is. He's not going to be a star, but you don't have to be to impact the team. If you're a defender and you're really good at it, you impact games that way. I just wish people, or at least more fans, would give him the same grace that they would give anybody else that was drafted in the 50s in the NBA.
Mo, the Cleveland Cavaliers are 12-0. They have won their first 12 games of the season. Quick update on the Eastern Conference. The Cavs and the Celtics are still the only two teams in the Eastern Conference above 500, but it's actually trending in the wrong direction because the Cavs, the Celtics, and the Pacers are the only three teams in the Eastern Conference at 500 or above. Everyone else is below 500 now, all the way from the fourth place 5-6 Magic, all the way down to the last place 2-9 Raptors. Dear God, something needs to change in the Eastern Conference, because if this is where we are a month from now, and half the playoff teams in the Eastern Conference are below 500 or struggling to be above 500, this is not going to be good basketball this season in that conference, because the Cavs and the Celtics are going to run away with this. And the narrative for the rest of the NBA season is going to be, it's going to be one of them. It's either going to be Cleveland or Boston, because there ain't no one else over there. And we think that the 76ers, when healthy, are going to be in contention. We think that maybe the Bucks will make a move to address the fact that they're old and slow and weak, and maybe they'll be able to do something later on in the season. We think that a young team like Orlando, or a team that was good last year like the Knicks, might be able to kind of right things and, on average play better than 500 basketball. But that's not where we are right now.
And people are always screaming for parity. This is a form of parity, but it's not good parity.
Not good parity.
What it is a bunch of bad basketball. Look, Milwaukee is. Look, I've been talking about this the last two seasons. You're an old team, and you just get old, and you get older, and you bring back the same roster, and you go, well, I think we're going to be really good. And I'm like, no, you're going to be old. You're going to be old and slow. And anybody not named Giannis, you have no athletes. Maybe one, and the kid Jackson that comes off the bench. But people forget that as gifted and as established a talent as Damian Lillard is, he is 34 years old, and he's not a big guard. I think Dame's like 6'2". He's 34. So, and he wasn't a good defender when he was 24. Now he's 34. Milwaukee finds themselves in shootouts almost every night because they can't stop the ball. They can't. People get whatever shot they want versus them. And as gifted and as dominant a player as Giannis is, he is flawed in this particular era, I want to say, in the NBA, because he's not a shooter of any kind. Everything he does, Chris, is in the restricted area. He has no range. He is a restricted area player, which makes it, what he does, very unique, because you look in the box score and you see 30, 11, and like 5 assists, and it's great. But late in games, when you need a basket, he's not the guy, because he is limited in what he could do. And they brought Dame there to be the difference maker, and that's not happening. I honestly look at Milwaukee and go, they need to make a move, but I don't think it's a small move. I think they need to make a choice.
They're going to blow it up?
I think you have to blow it up. You got to see this now and saw what it was last year and just admit we overreached. We wanted to – remember, this is all about Giannis. Giannis wanted a star. He wanted another superstar. And they were like, well, you got Drew, and Drew's – and I don't want Drew. I want a superstar. And they gave him what he wanted. Giannis wanted Adrian Griffin for the head coach, and they gave him what he wanted. He didn't realize that Adrian Griffin was going to be a really hard-nosed, honest coach. And when he told him what he thought of his brother, he ain't like that. So then he didn't want Adrian Griffin as the head coach. And now they got Doc Rivers. Milwaukee Bucks are paying two coaches who aren't even their coaches anymore. And if you fire Doc, you're going to be paying three guys who aren't your coach anymore. And I think when I look at Giannis, he's been able to avoid, Chris, that whole thing where, oh, he's a superstar flexing. But he's been flexing, and it hasn't worked out. And eventually, the honeymoon is over, and people start looking at him. That's what I'm saying. Giannis is 30 years old. As gifted as he is, I would make the argument his game is not going to age well.
Is there any chance they trade Giannis?
I don't think they trade him unless he out and out asks to be traded, because I think he wants to look like the good guy. I think he wants to be traded right now, but he won't do it. He's going to have to actually come out and ask for it. And I think they would do it because at the end of the day, Chris, what has he done? He's given them their first championship in 50 years. That fan base, they're not going to hate him if he wants to leave. They love the guy. But I think he's taking this particular franchise as far as they can go. Like their run, whatever you want to call their run, it's over.
Over in the Western Conference, we talked last week about the Golden State Warriors. Are they real? Are they not real? Well, they got their head stomped in by the Cleveland Cavaliers, but then they come out and they beat the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Right.
So where are we on the Warriors?
I'm impressed. I'll put it that way. When I saw them, the Cleveland game, I said, oh, here we are. Here it is. Reality. So they're not that good. It's smoke and mirrors. And they followed up that destruction by beating the top team in the West. They beat the Thunder. And the Thunder are one of the most talented teams, top to bottom, in all the NBA. I'm going to stop waiting for them to collapse and just acknowledge this Warriors team. Maybe it's not full of star-studded names outside of Steph, but it looks like a pretty good team overall. And again, it is early, but we're 10 games in, and they don't seem to be getting worse. They seem to be flexing, and I'm impressed. I'm impressed with what Steve Kerr and his coaching staff has done with this unit. I'm impressed with some of their young players stepping up. And I have to admit, and I most definitely don't recall ever thinking I'll be saying these words, Buddy Hield's played really well. He played really well. You give credit where credit is due, but and the funny thing is, this current version of Buddy Hield is much better than the current version of Klay Thompson right now. Just being honest.
Yeah, what do you make of that, Mo?
I make of it, it's tough when you get older and you're not quite what you were. Now, in Klay's defense, a lot of his problems is from all the injuries, he just never got back to what he was, his form. But look, Dallas didn't bring Klay Thompson there for what he could do for them in the regular season. They believe Klay Thompson's going to impact games and make a difference in the postseason. And I think that's still possible. We're early in the year. I'm not giving up on Klay. But look, he certainly hasn't had the impact that I think that the Mavericks thought, that Jason Kidd and company thought he would have. But it's early yet. A lot of guys that are MVP candidates are kind of struggling. Look, Luka's putting up huge numbers right across the boards as always, but he's only shooting 40% from the field. So it's early. I think Klay has plenty of time to still turn it around.
All right, Mo, that is going to take us to the end on a Tuesday. Close us out, sir.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. Make sure you check out all the great content we have at Wire to Wire Network. Wire to Wire Network, we appreciate you.
Hey, make sure you're back here same time, same place tomorrow. We got some more NBA stuff to talk about. We're going to get you primed for the upcoming week of NFL football. All of that and more. Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show powered by Wire to Wire Network. And we'll see